All right. Where are we? Chapter 17. We shop for waterbeds. It was Annabeth's idea. She loaded us in the back of a Vegas taxi as if we'd actually had money and told the driver, Los Angeles, please. Cavi chewed up a cigar and sized us up. That's 300 miles. For that, you gotta pay up front. You accept casino debit cards? Annabeth asked. He shrugged. Some of them. Same as credit cards. Gotta swipe them, though, first. Annabeth handed him her green Lotus Cash card, and he looked at it skeptically. Swipe it, Annabeth invited, and so he did. His meter machine began rattling. The lights flashed, and finally, an infinity symbol came up next to the dollar sign. The cigar fell out of his driver's mouth. He looked back at us, his eyes wide. Where to in Los Angeles, Your Highness? Santa Monica Pier. Annabeth sat up a little straighter. I could tell she liked that Your Highness thing. Get us there fast, and you can keep the change. Maybe she shouldn't have told him that. Cab's speedometer never dipped below 95 the whole way through the Mojave Desert. On the road, we had plenty of time to talk. I told Annabeth and Grover about my latest dream, but the details got sketchier the more I tried to remember them. The Lotus Casino seemed to have short-circuited my memory. I couldn't recall what the invisible servant's voice had sounded like, though I was sure it was somebody I knew. The servant had called the monster in the pit something other than my lord, some special name or title. The silent one, Annabeth suggested, or the rich one. Both are nicknames for Hades. Maybe, I said, though neither sounded quite right. The throne room sounds like Hades, Grover said, the way it's usually described. I shook my head. Something's wrong. The throne room wasn't the main part of the dream, and that voice from the pit, I don't know, it just didn't feel like a god's voice. Annabeth's eyes widened. What? I asked. Oh, nothing. I was just. No, it has to be Hades. Maybe he sent his thief, this invisible person, to get the Master Ball. Something went wrong. Like what? I don't know, she said. But if he stole Zeus's symbol of power from Olympus, and the gods were hunting him, I mean, a lot of things could go wrong. So this thief had to hide the vault, or he lost it somehow. Anyways, he failed to bring it to Hades. That's what the voice said in your dreams, right? The guy failed. That would explain what the Furies were searching for when they came after us on the bus. Maybe they thought we had retrieved the vault. I wasn't sure what was wrong with her. She looked pale. But if I'd already retrieved the bolt, I said, why would I be traveling to the underworld? To threaten Hades? Grover suggested. To bribe or blackmail him into getting your mom back. I whistled. You have evil thoughts for a goat. Why, thank you. The thing in the pit said it was waiting for two items, it said. If the master bolt is one, what is the other? Grover shook his head, clearly mystified. Annabeth was looking at me as if she knew my next question, and she was silently willing me not to ask it. You have an idea what might be in that pit, don't you? I asked her. I mean, if it isn't Hades? Percy, let's not talk about it, because if it isn't Hades, no, it has to be Hades. Wasteland rolled by. We passed a sign that said California State Line, 12 miles. I got the feeling I was missing one simple, critical piece of information. It was like when I stared at a common word that I should know, but I couldn't make sense of it because one or two letters were floating around. The more I thought about my quest, the more I was sure that confronting Hades wasn't the real answer. There was something else going on, something even more dangerous. The problem was, we were hurtling towards the underworld at 95 miles an hour, betting that Hades would have the Master Bolt. If we got there and found out we were wrong, we wouldn't have time to correct ourselves. The solstice deadline would pass, and the war would begin. The answer is in the underworld, Annabeth assured me. You saw spirits of the dead, Percy. That's only one place it could be. We're doing the right thing. She tried to boost our morale by suggesting clever strategies for getting into the land of the dead, but my heart wasn't in it. There was just too many unknown factors. It was like cramming for a test without knowing the subject. And believe me, I'd done that enough times. The cab sped west. Every gust of wind through Death Valley sounded like the spirit of the dead. Every time the brakes hissed on an 18-wheeler, it reminded me of the Insidia's reptilian voice. At sunset, the taxi dropped us at the beach in Santa Monica. It looked exactly the way LA beaches do in the movies, only it smelled worse. There were carnival rides lining the pier, palm trees lining the sidewalks, homeless guys sleeping in the sand dunes, and surfer dudes waiting for the perfect wave. Grover, Annabeth, and I walked down to the edge of the surf. What now? Annabeth asked. The Pacific was turning gold in the setting sun. I thought about how long it had been since I stood on the beach at Montauk, the opposite side of the country, looking out at a different sea. How could there be a god who could control all of that? What did my science teacher used to say? 2/3 of the Earth's surface was covered in water? How could I be the son of someone that powerful? I stepped into the surf. Percy, Annabeth said, what are you doing? I kept walking, up to my waist, and then my chest. She called after me, you know how polluted that water is? There's all kinds of toxic. And that's when my head went under. I held my breath at first. It's difficult to intentionally inhale water. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. I gasped. And sure enough, I could breathe normally. I walked down into the shoals. I shouldn't have been able to see through the murk, but somehow I could tell where everything was. I could sense the rolling texture of the bottom. I could even make out sound dollar colonies dotting the sandbars. I could even see the currents, warm and cold streams swirling together. I felt something rub against my leg. I looked down and almost shot out of the water like a ballistic missile. Sliding along beside me was a 2 meter long mako shark. The thing wasn't attacking. It was nuzzling me, healing me like a dog. Tentatively, I touched its dorsal fin. It bucked a little, as if inviting me to hold tighter. I grabbed the fin with both hands, and it took off, pulling me along. The shark carried me down into the darkness. It deposited me at the edge of the ocean proper, where the sandbank dropped off into a huge chasm. It was like standing on the rim of the Grand Canyon at midnight, not being able to see much, but knowing the void was right there. The surface shimmered, maybe 50 meters above. I knew I shouldn't have been crushed by the pressure, and then again, I shouldn't have been able to breathe. I wondered if there was a limit to how deep I could go, if I could sink straight to the bottom of the Atlantic. Then I saw something glimmering in the darkness below, growing bigger and brighter as it rose towards me. A woman's voice, like my mother's, called, Percy Jackson. As she got closer, her shape became clearer. She had flowing black hair, a dress made of green silk. Light flickered around her, and her eyes were so distractingly beautiful that I hardly noticed the stallion-sized seahorse she was riding. She dismounted. The seahorse and the mako shark whisked off and started playing something that looked like tag. The underwater lady smiled at me. You've come quite far, Percy Jackson. Well done. I wasn't sure what to do, so I bowed. You're the woman who spoke to me in the Mississippi River. Yes, child. I am a Nereid, a spirit of the sea. It's not easy to appear so far upriver, but my naiads, my freshwater cousins, help sustain my life force. They honor Lord Poseidon, though they do not serve in his court. And you serve in Poseidon's court? She nodded. It has been many years since a child of the sea god has been born. We have all watched you with great interest. Suddenly I remember faces in the waves of the Montauk beach when I was a little boy, reflections of smiling women. Like so many of the weird things in my life, I'd never given much thought before. If my father is so interested in me, I said, why isn't he here? Why doesn't he speak to me? A cold current rose out of the depths. Do not judge the Lord of the Sea too harshly, the Nereid told me. He stands at the brink of an unwanted war. He has much to occupy his time. Besides, he is forbidden to help you directly. The gods may not show such favoritism. Even to their own children? Especially to them. The gods can work by indirect influence only. That is why I give you a warning and a gift. She held out her hand. 3 white pearls flashed in her palm. I know you journeyed to Hades' realm, she said. Few mortals have ever gone there and survived. Orpheus, who had great musical skill, Hercules, who had great strength, Houdini, who could even escape the depths of Tartarus. Do you have any of these talents? No, ma'am. But you have something else, Percy. You have gifts that you have only begun to know. The oracles have foretold a great and terrible future for you, should you survive to manhood. Poseidon would not have you die before your time. Therefore, take these, and when in need, smash a pearl at your feet. What'll happen? That, she said, depends on the need. But remember, what belongs to the sea will always return to the sea. What about the warning? Her eyes flicked with green light. Go with what your heart tells you, or you will lose all. Hades feeds on doubt and hopelessness. He will trick you if he can, make you mistrust your own judgment. Once you are in his realm, he will never willingly let you leave. Keep faith. Good luck, Percy Jackson. She summoned her seahorse and rode towards the void. Wait, I called at the river. You said not to trust the gifts. What gifts? Goodbye, young hero, she called back, her voice fading into the depths. You must listen to your heart. She became a speck of glowing green, and then she was gone. I wanted to follow her down into the darkness. I wanted to see the court of Poseidon, but I looked at the sunset darkening on the surface. My friends were waiting, and we had so little time. I kicked towards the shore. When I reached the beach, I told Grover and Annabeth what had happened, and then I showed them the pearls. Annabeth grimaced. No gift comes without a price. These were free. No, she shook her head. There's no such thing as a free lunch. That's an ancient Greek saying that translated pretty well into American. There will be a price. You wait. On that happy thought, we returned our backs on the sea. With some spare change from Mary's backpack, we took the bus into West Hollywood. I showed the driver the underworld address slip I'd taken from Auntie M's and Garden Gnome Emporium, but he'd never heard of the DOA recording studios. Reminded me of someone I saw on TV, he told me. You a child actor or something? I'm a stunt double for a lot of child actors. Oh, that explains it. We thanked him and got off quickly at the next stop. We wandered for miles on foot, looking for DOA. Nobody seemed to know where it was. It didn't even appear in the phone book. Twice, we ducked into alleys to avoid cop cars. I froze in front of an appliance store window because a television was playing an interview with someone who looked very familiar. My stepdad, Smelly Gabe. He was talking to Barbara Walters. I mean, as if he were in some kind of huge celebrity. She was interviewing him in our apartment in the middle of a poker game. There was a young blonde lady sitting next to him, patting his hand. A fake tear glistened on his cheek. He was saying, Honest, Miss Walters, if it wasn't for Sugar here, my grief counselor, I'd be a wreck. My stepson took everything I cared about. My wife, my Camaro. I'm sorry, I have trouble talking about it. There you have it, America. Barbara Walters turned to the camera. A man torn apart, an adolescent boy with serious issues. Let me show you, again, the last known photo of this troubled fugitive, taken a week ago in Denver. The screen cut to a grainy shot of me, Annabeth, and Grover, standing next to the Colorado diner, talking to Aries. Who are the other children in this photo? Barbara Walter asked dramatically. Who is the man with them? Is Percy Jackson a delinquent, a terrorist, or perhaps the brainwashed victim of a frightening new cult? When we come back, we chat with a leading child psychologist. Stay tuned, America. Come on, Grover told me. He hauled me away before I could punch a hole in the appliance store window. It got dark, and hungry-looking characters started coming out on the streets to play. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a New Yorker. I don't scare easy. But LA had a totally different feel from New York. Back home, everything seemed close. Didn't matter how big the city was, you could get anywhere without getting lost. The street pattern and the subway made sense. There was a system to how things worked. A kid could be safe, as long as he wasn't stupid. LA wasn't like that. It was spread out, chaotic, hard to move around. It reminded me of Aries. It wasn't enough for LA to be big. It had to prove it was big by being loud and strange and difficult to navigate too. I didn't know how we were ever going to find the entrance to the underworld by tomorrow, the summer solstice. We walked past gangbangers, bums, and street hawkers who looked at us like they were trying to figure out if we were worth the trouble of mugging. As we hurried past the entrance of an alley, a voice came from darkness. Hey, you. And like an idiot, I stopped. Before I knew it, we were surrounded. A gang of kids had circled us, 6 of them in all. White kids with expensive clothes and mean faces, like the kids at Yancey Academy. Rich Brats playing at being bad boys. Instinctively, I uncapped Riptide. When the sword appeared out of nowhere, the kids backed off, but their leader was either really stupid or really brave, because he kept coming at me with a switchblade, and I made the mistake of swinging. The kid yelped, but he must have been 100% mortal because the blade passed harmlessly right through his chest. He looked down. What the? I figured I had about 3 seconds before his shock turned into anger. Run, I screamed at Annabeth and Grover. We pushed two kids out of the way and raced down the street, not knowing where we were going. We turned a sharp corner. There, Annabeth shouted. Only one store on the block looked open, its windows glaring with neon. The sign above the door said something like Custy's Waterbed Alice. Rusty's Waterbed Palace? Grover translated. Didn't sound like a place I'd ever go, except in an emergency, but this definitely qualified. We burst through the doors, ran behind a waterbed, and ducked. A split second later, the gang kids ran past outside. I think we lost them, Grover panted. A voice behind us boomed. Lost who? We all jumped. Standing behind us was a guy who looked like a raptor in a leisure suit. He was at least 2 meters tall, with absolutely no hair. He had gray, leathery skin, thick, lidded eyes, and a cold, reptilian smile. He moved towards us slowly, but I got the feeling he could move fast if he needed to. His suit might have come from the Lotus Casino. It belonged back in the 70s, big time. The shirt was silk paisley, unbuttoned halfway down his hairless chest. The lapels on his velvet jacket were as wide as landing strips, silver chains around his neck. I couldn't even count them. I'm crusty, he said, with a tartar yellow smile. I resisted the urge to say, yes, you are. Sorry to barge in, I told him. We were just, browsing. You mean hiding from those no-good kids, he grumbled. They hang around every night. Get a lot of people in here, thanks to them. Say, you want to look at a waterbed? I was about to say no thanks when he put a huge paw on my shoulder, steered me deep into the showroom. There was every kind of waterbed you could imagine. Different kinds of wood, different patterns of sheets, queen-sized, king-sized, emperor of the universe size. This is my most popular model. Krusty spread his hands proudly over a bed covered in black satin sheets with built-in lava lamps on the headboard. The mattress vibrated, so it looked like oil-flavored jelly. Million hand massage, Krusty told us. Go on, try it out. Shoot, take a nap. I don't care. No business today, anyway. I said, I don't think. Million hand massage, Grover cried and dived in. Oh, you guys, this is cool. Krusty said, stroking his leathery chin. Almost. Almost. Almost what? I asked. He looked at Annabeth. Do me a favor and try this one over here, honey. Might fit. Annabeth said, but what? He patted her reassuringly on the shoulder and led her over to a Safari Deluxe model with teakwood lions carved into the frame and a leopard patterned bedspread. When Annabeth didn't want to lie down, Krusty pushed her. Hey, she protested. Krusty snapped his fingers. Ergo. Ropes sprang up from the sides of the bed, lashing around Annabeth, holding her to the mattress. Grover tried to get up, but ropes sprang from his black satin bed too, lashed him down. Not cool, he yelled, his voice vibrating from the million-hand massage. Not cool at all. The giant looked at Annabeth and then turned towards me and grinned. Almost. Darn it. I tried to step away, but his hand shot out and clamped around the back of my neck. Whoa, kid, don't worry. We'll find you one in a sec. Let my friends go. Oh, sure, I will, but I gotta make them fit first. What do you mean? All my feds are exactly 6 feet. See? Your friends are too short. Gotta make them fit. Annabeth and Grover kept struggling. Can't stand in perfect measurements, Krusty murmured. Ergo. A new set of ropes leaped out from the top and the bottom of their beds, wrapping around Grover and Annabeth's ankles, then around their armpits. The ropes started tightening, pulling my friends from both ends. Don't worry, Krusty told me. These are stretching jobs. Maybe 8 extra centimeters on their spines. They might even live. Now why don't you find a bed you like, huh? Percy, Grover yelled. My mind was racing. I knew that I couldn't take on this giant waterbed salesman alone. He would snap my neck before I ever got my sword out. Your real name's not Krusty, is it? I asked. Legally, it's Procrusteus, he admitted. The stretcher, I said. I remembered the story. The giant who tried to kill Theseus with over-hospitality on his way to Athens. Yeah, the salesman said, but who can pronounce Procrusteus? Bad for business. Now, crusty, anybody can say that. You're right, it's got a good ring to it. His eyes lit up. You think so? Oh, absolutely, I said. And the workmanship on these beds? Fabulous. He grinned hugely, but his fingers didn't loosen on my neck. I tell my customers that every time. Nobody bothers to look at the workmanship. How many built-in lava lamp headboards have you seen? Not too many. That's right. Percy, Annabeth yelled. What are you doing? Don't mind her, I told Procrusteus. She's impossible. The giant laughed. All my customers are. Never 6 feet exactly. So inconsiderate, and then they complain about the fitting. What happens if they're longer than 6 feet? Oh, that happens all the time. It's a simple fix. He let go of my neck, but before I could react, he reached behind a nearby sales desk and brought out a huge double-bladed brass axe. He said, I just center the subject best I can and lop off whatever hangs over at either end. Ah, I said, swallowing hard. Sensible. So glad you come across such an intelligent customer. The ropes were really stretching my friends now. Annabeth was turning pale. Grover made gurgling sounds like a strangled goose. So, crusty, I said, trying to keep my voice light. I glanced at the sales tag on the Valentine-shaped honeymoon special. Does this one really have dynamic stabilizers to stop wave motion? Absolutely. Try it out. Yeah, maybe. I will. But would it work even for a big guy like you? No waves at all. Guarantee you. No way. Way. Show me. He sat down eagerly on the bed, patted the mattress. No waves, see? I snapped my fingers. Ergo. Ropes lashed around Krusty and flattened him against the mattress. Hey, he yelled. Center him just right, I said. The ropes readjusted themselves at my command. Krusty's whole head stuck out over the top. His feet stuck out over the bottom. No, he said. Wait, this is just a demo. I uncapped Riptide. A few simple adjustments. I had no qualms about what I was about to do. If Krusty were a human, I couldn't hurt him anyways. If he was a monster, he deserved to turn into dust for just a while. You drive a hard bargain, he told me. I'll give you 30% off the selected floor models. I think I'll start with the top. I raised my sword. No money down. No interest for 6 months. I swung the sword. Krusty stopped making offers. I cut the ropes on the other beds. Annabeth and Grover got to their feet, groaning, wincing, and cursing. At me. A lot. You look taller, I said. Very funny, Annabeth said. Be faster next time. I looked at the bulletin board behind Krusty's sales desk. There was an advertisement for a Hermes delivery service and another for the all-new compendium of L.A. monsters. The only monstrous yellow pages you'll ever need. Under that, a bright orange flyer for the DOA recording studios offering commissions for hero souls. We are always looking for new talent. DOA's address was right underneath with a map. Come on, I told my friends. Give us a minute, Grover complained. You're almost stretched to death. Then you're ready for the underworld, I said. It's only a block from here. Chapter 18. Annabeth does obedience school. We stopped in the shadows of Valencia Boulevard, looking up at the gold letters etched into black marble. DOA Recording Studios. Underneath, stenciled on the glass doors, no solicitors, no loitering, no living. It was almost midnight, but the lobby was brightly lit and full of people. Behind the security desk sat a tough-looking guard with sunglasses and an earpiece. I turned to my friends. Okay, you remember the plan. The plan? Grover gulped. Yeah, I love the plan. Annabeth said, what happens if the plan doesn't work? Don't think negative. Right, she said. We're entering the land of the dead, and I shouldn't think negative. Gotcha. I took the pearls out of my pocket. 3 milky spheres the Nereid had given me in Santa Monica. They didn't seem like much backup in case something went wrong. Annabeth put her hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Percy. You were right. We'll make it. It'll be fine. She gave Grover a nudge. Oh, right, he chimed in. We got this far. We'll find the Master Bolt and save your mom. No problem. I looked at them both, felt really grateful. Only a few minutes before, I'd almost got them stretched to death on deluxe waterbeds, and now they were trying to be brave for my sake, trying to make me feel better. I slipped the pearls back into my pocket. Let's whoop some underworld butt. We walked inside the DOA lobby. Music played softly on hidden speakers. The carpet and the walls were steel gray. Pencil cactuses grew in corners like skeleton hands. The furniture was black leather, and every seat was taken. There were people sitting on couches, people standing up, people staring out the windows, waiting for the elevator. Nobody moved, or talked, or did much of anything. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see them all just fine, but if I focused in on any one of them in particular, they started looking transparent? I could see right through their bodies. Security guard's desk was a raised podium, so we had to look up at him. He was tall and elegant, with chocolate-colored skin and a bleached blonde hair shaved military style. He wore turquoise shades and a silk Italian suit that matched his hair. A black rose was pinned to his lapel under a silver name tag. I read the name tag and looked at him in bewilderment. Your name is Chiron? He leaned across his desk. I couldn't see anything in his glasses except my own reflection, but his smile was sweet and cold, like a python's right before it eats you. What a precious young lad. He had a strange accent. British, maybe. Almost if he had learned English as a second language. Tell me, mate, do I look like a centaur? No. Sir, he added smoothly. Sir, I said. He pinched the name tag and ran his finger under the letters. Can you read this, mate? It says Charon. Say it with me. Charon. Charon. Amazingly. Now, Mr. Charon. Mr. Charon, I said. Well done. He sat back. I hate being confused with that old horseman. Now, how may I help you little dead ones? His question caught me in my stomach, like a fastball. I looked to Annabeth for support. We want to go to the underworld, she said. Charon's mouth twitched. Well, that's refreshing. Is it? She asked. Straightforward and honest. No screaming. No, there must be a mistake, Mr. Charon. He looked over us. How did you die then? I nudged Grover. Oh, he said, drowned. In the bathtub. All three of you? Charon asked. We nodded. Big bathtub. Charon looked mildly impressed. I don't suppose you have coins for passage. Normally with adults, you see, I could charge your American Express or add the ferry price to your last cable bill, but with children, alas, you never die prepared. Suppose you'll have to take a seat for a few centuries. Oh, but we have coins. I said 3 golden drachma on the counter, part of the stash I'd found in Krusty's old office desk. Well now, Charon moistened his lips. Real drachmas. Real golden drachmas. I haven't seen these in... His fingers hovered greedily over the coins. We were so close. Then Charon looked at me. That cold stare behind his glasses seemed to bore a hole through my chest. Here now, he said. You couldn't read my name correctly. Are you dyslexic, lad? No, I said. I'm dead. Charon leaned forward and took a sniff. You are not dead. I should have known. You are a godling. We have to get to the underworld, I insisted. Charon made a growling sound deep in his throat. Immediately, all the people in the waiting room got up and started pacing, agitated, lighting cigarettes, running hands through their hair, or checking their wristwatches. Leave while you can, Charon told us. I'll just take these and forget I saw you. He started to go for the coins, but I snatched them back. No service, no tip. I tried to sound braver than I felt. Charon growled again, a deep, blood-chilling sound. The spirits of the dead started pounding on the elevator doors. It's a shame, too, I sighed. We have more to offer. I held up the entire bag from Krusty's stash, took out a fistful of drachmas, and let the coins spill through my fingers. Charon's growl changed into something more like a lion's purr. You think I can be bought, Godling? Just out of curiosity, how much have you got there? A lot, I said. I bet Hades doesn't pay you well enough for such hard work. Oh, you don't know the half of it. How would you like to babysit these spirits all day, always with the please don't let me be dead, or please let me cross for free? I haven't had a pay raise in 3,000 years. Do you imagine suits like this come cheap? You deserve better, I agreed. A little appreciation, respect, good pay. With each word, I stacked another gold coin on the counter. Charon glanced down at his silk Italian jacket as if imagining himself in something even better. I must say, lad, you're making some sense now. Just a little. Stacked another few coins. I could mention a pay raise while I'm talking to Hades. He sighed. The boat's almost full anyways. Might as well add you three and be off. He stood, scooping up our money, and said, Come along. We pushed through the crowd of wailing spirits who started grabbing at our clothes like the wind, their voices whispering things I couldn't make out. Charon shoved them out of the way, grumbling, Freeloaders. He escorted us into the elevator, which was already crowded with souls of the dead, each one holding a green boarding pass. Charon grabbed two spirits who were trying to get on with us and pushed them back into the lobby. Right. No one get any ideas while I'm gone. He announced to the waiting room. And if anyone moves the dial off my easy listening station again, I'll make sure you're here for another 1,000 years. Understood? He shut the doors. He put the key in the card slot in the elevator panel, and we started to descend. What happens to the spirits waiting in the lobby? Annabeth asked. Nothing, Charon said. For how long? Forever. Or until I'm feeling generous. Oh, she said. That's fair. Charon raised an eyebrow. Whoever said death was fair, young miss? Wait until it's your turn. You'll die soon enough where you're going. We'll get out alive, I said. Ha! I got a sudden dizzy feeling. We weren't going down anymore, but forward. The air turned misty. Spirits around me started changing shape. Their modern clothes flickered, turning into gray, hooded robes. The floor of the elevator began swaying. I blinked hard. When I opened my eyes, Charon's creamy Italian suit had been replaced by a long, black robe. His tortoiseshell glasses were gone. Where his eyes should have been were empty sockets, like Ares' eyes, except Charon's were totally dark, full of night, and death, and despair. He looked at me, looking, and said, Well, nothing. I managed. I thought he was grinning, but that wasn't it. The flesh of his face was becoming transparent, letting me see straight through to his skull. The floor kept swaying. Grover said, I think I'm going to get seasick. When I blinked again, the elevator wasn't an elevator anymore. We were sitting in a wooden barge. Charon was pointing us towards a dark, oily river, swirling with bones, dead fish, and other stranger things. Plastic dolls, crushed carnations, soggy diplomas with gilt edges. The river Styx? Annabeth murmured. It's so polluted, Charon said. For thousands of years, you humans have been throwing in everything you come across. Hopes, dreams, wishes that never came true. Irresponsible waste management, if you ask me. Mist curled off the filthy water. Above us, almost lost in the gloom, was a ceiling of stalactites. Ahead, the far shore glimmered with greenish light, the color of poison. Panic closed up my throat. What was I doing here? These people around me. They were dead. Annabeth grabbed hold of my hand. Under normal circumstances, this would have embarrassed me, but I understood how she felt. She wanted reassurance that someone else was alive on that boat. I found myself muttering a prayer, though I wasn't quite sure who I was praying to. Down here, only one God mattered, and he wasn't the one I had come to confront. The shoreline of the underworld came into view. Craggy rocks, black volcanic sand stretched inland about 50 meters to the base of a high stone wall, which marched off in either direction as far as we could see. A sound came from somewhere nearby in the green gloom, echoing off the stones, the howl of a large animal. Old Three Faces hungry, Charon said. His smile turned skeleton in the greenish light. Bad luck for you, godlings. The bottom of our boat slid onto the black sand. The dead began to disembark. a woman holding a little girl's hand, an old man and an old woman hobbling along in one arm. A boy, no older than I was, shuffling silent along in his grey robe. Charon said, I'd wish you luck, mate, but there isn't any down here. Mind you, don't forget to mention my pay raise. He counted our golden coins into his pouch and then took up his pole. He warbled something that sounded like a Barry Manilow song as he ferried the empty barge back across the river. We followed the spirits up a well-worn path. I'm not sure what I was expecting. Pearly gates, big black porticles, or something. But the entrance to the underworld looked like a cross between airport security and the Jersey Turnpike. There were 3 separate entrances under one huge black archway that said, You are now entering Eberus. Each entrance had a pass-through metal detector mounted with security cameras. Beyond this were toll booths manned by black-robed ghouls like Charon. The howling of the hungry animal was really loud now, but I couldn't see where it was coming from. The 3-headed dog, Cerberus, who was supposed to guard Hades' door, was nowhere to be seen. The dead queued up in 3 lines, 2 marked Attendant on Duty and 1 marked Easy Death. The Easy Death line was moving right along. The other 2 were crawling. What do you figure? I asked Annabeth. The fast line must go straight to Asphodel, she said. No contest. They don't want to risk judgment from the court because it might go against them. There's a court for dead people? Yeah, 3 judges. They switch around who sits on the bench. King Minos, Thomas Jefferson's, Shakespeare, people like that. Sometimes they look at a life and decide that person needs a special reward, the fields of Elysium. Sometimes they decide on punishment. Most people, well, they just lived. Nothing good, special, good or bad. They go to the fields of Asphodel. And do what? Grover said, Imagine standing in a wheat field in Kansas. Forever. Harsh, I said. Not as harsh as that, Grover muttered. Look. A couple of black-robed ghouls had pulled aside one spirit and were frisking him at a security desk. The face of the dead man looked vaguely familiar. He's that preacher who made the news, remember? Grover asked. Oh, yeah. I did remember now. We'd seen him on TV a couple of times at the Yancey Academy dorm. He was this annoying televangelist from upstate New York who'd raised millions of dollars for orphanages and then got caught spending the money on stuff for his mansion, like gold-plated toilet seats, an indoor putt-putt golf course. He died in a police chase when his Lamborghini for the Lord went off a cliff. What are they doing to him? I said. Special punishment from Hades, Grover guessed. The really bad people get his personal attention as soon as they come. The kindly ones will set up an eternal torture for him. The thought of the Furies made me shudder. I realized I was in their home territory now. Old Miss Dodds would be licking her lips with anticipation. But if he's a preacher, I said, and preachers believe in a different hell. Grover shrugged. Who says he's seeing this place the way we're seeing it? Humans will see what they want to see. They're very stubborn, persistent that way. We got closer to the gates. The howling was so loud now that it shook the ground at my feet, but I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Then, about 15 meters in front of us, the green mist shimmered. Standing just where the path split into 3 lanes was an enormous, shadowy monster. I hadn't seen it before, because it was half transparent, like the dead, until it moved, and it blended with whatever was behind it. Only its eyes and teeth looked solid. They were all staring right at me. My jaw hung open. All I could think to say was, he's a Rottweiler. I'd always imagined Cerberus as a big black mastiff, but he was obviously a purebred Rottweiler, except of course that he was twice the size of a woolly mammoth, almost invisible, and had 3 heads. The dead walked right up to him, no fear at all. The attendant on duty lines parted on either side of him. The easy death spirits walked right between his front paws and under his belly, which they could do without even crouching. I'm starting to see him better, I murmured. Why is that? I think, Annabeth moistened her lips, I think it's because we're going to be closer to being dead. The dog's middle head craned towards us. It sniffed the air and growled. It could smell the living, I said. But that's okay, Grover said, trembling next to me, because we have a plan. Right, Annabeth said, and I'd never heard her voice sound quite so small. A plan. We moved towards the monster. The middle head snarled at us, then barked so loudly that my eyeballs rattled. Can you understand it? I asked Grover. Oh, yeah, he said. I can understand it. What's it saying? I don't think humans have a four-letter word that translates exactly. I took the big stick out of my backpack. A bedpost had broken off Cressy's Safari Deluxe floor model. I held it up and tried to channel happy dog thoughts towards Cerberus. Alpha commercials, cute little puppies, fire hydrants. I tried to smile, like I wasn't about to die. Hey, big fella, I called out. Bet they don't play with you much. Growl. Good boy, I said weakly. I waved the stick. The dog's middle head followed the movement. The other two heads trained their eyes on me, completely ignoring the spirits. I had Cerberus's undivided attention, and I wasn't sure that was such a good thing. Fetch. I threw the stick into the gloom. A good solid throw. I'd go kersploosh in the river Styx. Cerberus glared at me, unimpressed. His eyes were baleful and cold. So much for a plan. Cerberus was now making a new kind of growl, deeper down in its three throats. Grover? Percy? Yeah? I just thought you'd want to know. Yeah, Cerberus, he's saying we got 10 seconds to pray to the god of our choice. And after that, well, he's hungry. Wait, Annabeth said. She started rifling through her pack. Uh-oh. 5 seconds, Grover said. Do we run now, or... Annabeth produced a red rubber ball the size of a grapefruit. It was labeled Wetland Denver, Colorado. Before I could stop her, she raised the ball and marched straight up towards Cerberus. She shouted, See the ball? You want the ball? Cerberus, sit. Cerberus looked as stunned as we were. All three of his heads cocked sideways, 6 nostrils dilated. Sit, Annabeth called again. I was sure that at any moment she would become the world's largest milk-bone dog biscuit. But instead, Cerberus licked with 3 sets of lips, shifted on his haunches, and sat, immediately crushing a dozen spirits who'd been passing underneath in the easy death line. The spirits made muffled hisses as they dissipated, like air let out of tires. Annabeth said, Good boy. She threw Cerberus the ball. He caught it in his middle mouth. It was barely big enough for him to chew. The other head started snapping at the middle, trying to get the new toy. Drop it, Annabeth ordered. Cerberus's head stopped fighting and looked at her. The ball was wedged between 2 sets of teeth like a tiny piece of gum. He made a loud, scary whimper and then dropped the ball, now slimy, nearly bitten in half, at Annabeth's feet. Good boy. She picked up the ball, ignoring the monster spit all over it. She turned towards us. Go now. Easy deathline. It's faster, I said. But no. Now, she ordered, the same tone she was using on the dog. Grover and I inched forward warily. Cerberus started to growl. Stay, Annabeth ordered the monster. If you want the ball, stay. Cerberus whimpered, but he stayed where he was. What about you? I asked Annabeth as we passed her. I know what I'm doing, Percy, she murmured. Or at least I'm pretty sure. Grover and I walked between the monster's legs. Please, Annabeth, I prayed. Don't tell him to sit again. We made it through. Cerberus wasn't any scary looking from the back. Annabeth said, Good dog. She held up the tattered red ball and probably came to the conclusion that I did. If she rewarded Cerberus, there'd be nothing left for another trick. She threw the ball anyway. The monster's left mouth immediately snatched it up, only to be attacked by the middle head, while the right head moaned in protest. While the monster was distracted, Annabeth walked briskly under its belly and had joined us at the medical... So sorry. And joined us at the medical detector. How did you do that? I asked her, amazed. Obedience school, she said breathlessly. I was surprised to see there were tears in her eyes. When I was little, at my dad's house, we had a Doberman. Never mind that, Grover said, tugging at my shirt. Come on. We were about to bolt through the easy death line when Cerberus moaned pitifully from all 3 mouths. Annabeth stopped. She turned to face the dog, which had done a 180 to look at us. Cerberus panted excitedly, the tiny red ball in pieces in a puddle of drool at its feet. Good boy, Annabeth said, but her voice sounded melancholy and uncertain. The monster's head turned sideways, as if worried about her. I'll bring you another ball soon, Annabeth promised faintly. Would you like that? The monster whimpered. I didn't speak dog, but I didn't need to know Cerberus was still waiting for the ball. Good dog, I'll come visit you soon. I promise. Annabeth turned to us. Let's go. Grover and I pushed through the metal detector, which immediately screamed and set off flashing red lights. Unauthorized possessions, magic detected. Cerberus started to bark. We burst through the easy death gate, which started even more alarms blaring, and raced into the underworld. A few minutes later, we were hiding, out of breath, in the rotten trunk of an immense black tree as security ghouls scuttled past, yelling for backup from the Furies. Grover murmured, Well, Percy, what have we learned today? That three-headed dogs prefer red rubber balls over sticks? No, Grover told me. We've learned that your plans really, really bite. I wasn't sure about that. I thought maybe Annabeth and I had both had the right idea. Even here in the underworld, everybody, even monsters, needed a little attention once in a while. I thought about that as we waited for the ghouls to pass. I pretended not to see Annabeth wipe a tear from her cheek as she listened to the mournful keening of Cerberus in the distance, longing for his new friend. All right, we will take a short intermission here. All right, everybody. Welcome back. I think we'll do the third chapter tonight. Chapter 19. We find out the truth. Sort of. Imagine the largest concert crowd you've ever seen. A football field packed with a million fans. Now imagine a field a million times that packed with people, and imagine the electricity had gone out. And there's no noise, no light, no beach ball bouncing around over the crowd. Something has happened. Something tragic has happened backstage. Whispering masses of people that are just milling around in the shadows, waiting for a concert that will never start. If you can picture that, you have a pretty good idea what the fields of Asphodel looked like. The black grass had been trampled by aeons of dead feet. A warm, moist wind blew in like the breath of a swamp. Black trees, Grover told me they were pulpars, grew in clumps here and there. The cavern ceiling was so high above us it might have been a bank of storm clouds, except for the stalactites, which glowed faint gray and looked wickedly pointed. I tried not to imagine they'd fall on us at any moment, but dotted around the fields were several that had fallen and impaled themselves in black grass. I guess dead people didn't have to worry about little hazards like being speared by stalactites the size of booster rockets. Annabeth, Grover, and I tried to blend into the crowd, keeping an eye out for the security ghouls, but I couldn't help looking for familiar faces among the spirits of Asphodel. But the dead are hard to look at. Their faces shimmer. They all look slightly angry or confused. They will come up to you and speak, but their voices sound like chatter, like bats twittering. Once they realize you can't understand them, they frown and move away. The dead aren't scary, they're just sad. We crept along, following the line of new arrivals that snaked from the main gate towards a black tented pavilion with a banner that read, "Justice for Elysium and Eternal Damnation. Welcome, newly deceased." On the back of the tent came two much smaller lines. To the left, spirits flanked by security ghouls were marched down a rocky path towards the fields of punishment, which glowed and smoked in the distance, a vast, cracked wasteland with rivers of lava and minefields and miles of barbed wire separating the different torture areas. Even from far away, I could see people being chased by hellhounds, burned at the stake, forced to run naked through cactus patches or listen to opera music. I could just make out a tiny hill with the ant-sized figure of Siphius struggling to remove his boulder to the top. And I saw worse tortures too, things that I don't want to describe. The lines coming down from the right side of Judgment Pavilion was much better. This one led towards a small valley surrounded by walls, a gated community, which seemed to be the only happy part of the underworld. Beyond the security gate were neighborhoods. Beautiful houses from every time period in history, Roman villas and medieval castles and Victorian mansions. Silver and gold flowers bloomed on the lawns. The grass rippled in rainbow colors. I could hear laughter and smell barbecue cooking. Elysium. In the middle of that valley was a glittering blue lake with three small islands like a vacation resort in the Bahamas. The Isles of Blessed, with people who had chosen to be reborn 3 times, and 3 times had achieved Elysium. Immediately, I knew that's where I wanted to go when I died. "That's what it's all about," Annabeth said, like she was reading my thoughts. "That's the place for heroes." But I thought about how few people were there in Elysium, how tiny it was compared to Asphodel or even Punishment. So few people did good in their lives. It was depressing. We left the Judgment Pavilion and moved closer into Asphodel. It got darker. The colors faded from our clothes. The crowd of chattering spirits began to thin. After a few miles of walking, we began to hear a familiar screech in the distance. Looming on the horizon was a palace of glittering black obsidian. Of the parapets swirled 3 dark, bat-like creatures. The Furies. I got the feeling they were waiting for us. "I suppose it's too late to turn back," Grover said wistfully. "We'll be okay." I tried to sound confident. "Maybe we should search some other places first," Grover suggested. "Like Elysium, for instance." "Come on, goat boy." Annabeth grabbed his arm. Grover yelped, and his trainer sprouted wings and shot forward, pulling him away from Annabeth. He landed flat on his back in the grass. "Grover," Annabeth chided, "stop messing around." But I didn't. He yelped again, and his shoes were flapping like crazy now. They levitated off the ground and started dragging him away from us. "Maya," he yelled, but the magic words seemed to have no effect. "Maya already. 911. Help!" I got over being stunned and made a grab for Grover's hand, but too late. He was picking up speed, skidding downhill like a bobsled. We ran after him. Annabeth shouted, "Untie the shoes." It was a smart idea, but I guess it's not so easy when your shoes are pulling you along feet first at full speed. Grover tried to sit up, but he couldn't even get close to the laces. We kept after him, trying to keep him in sight as he zipped between the legs of spirits who chattered at him in annoyance. I was sure Grover was going to barrel straight through the gates of Hades' palace, but the shoes veered sharply to the right and dragged him in the opposite direction. The slope got steeper. Grover picked up speed. Annabeth and I had to sprint to keep up. The cavern walls narrowed on either side, and I realized we'd entered some kind of side tunnel. No black grass or trees now, just rock underfoot, and the dim of the stalactites above. Grover, I yelled, my voice echoing. Hold on to something. What? He yelled back. He was grabbing at gravel, but there was nothing big enough to slow him down. The tunnel got darker and colder. The hair on my arms bristled. It smelled evil down here. Made me think of things I shouldn't even know about. Blood spilled on an ancient stone altar, the foul breath of a murderer. And then I saw what was ahead of us, and I stopped dead in my tracks. The tunnel widened to a huge, dark cavern, and in the middle of the chasm was the size of a city block. Grover was sliding straight towards the edge. Come on, Percy, Annabeth yelled, tugging at my wrists. But that's... I know, she shouted, the place you described in your dream. But Grover's going to fall if we don't catch him. She was right, of course. Grover's predicament had got me moving again. He was yelling, clawing at the ground, but the winged shoes kept dragging him towards the pit, and it didn't look like we'd possibly get to him in time. What saved him were his hooves. The flying sneakers had always been a loose fit on him, and finally Grover hit a big rock, and the left shoe came flying off. It sped into the darkness, down into the chasm. The right shoe kept tugging him along, but not quite as fast. Grover was able to slow himself down by grabbing onto a big rock and using it like an anchor. He was 3 meters from the edge of the pit when he caught it himself and hauled himself back up the slope. The other winged shoe tugged itself off, circled around angrily, and kicked at our heads in protest before flying into the chasm to join its twin. We all collapsed, exhausted, on the obsidian gravel. My limbs felt like lead. Even the backpack seemed heavier, as if somebody had filled it with rocks. Grover was scratched up pretty bad. His hands were bleeding. His eyes had gone slit-pupiled, goat style, and the way they did whenever he was terrified. I don't know how. He panted. I didn't. Wait. I said, listen. I heard something. A deep whisper in the darkness. Another few seconds, and Annabeth said, Percy, this place. Shh. I stood. The sound was getting louder, a muttering, evil voice from far, far below us, coming from the pit. Grover sat up. What's that noise? Annabeth heard it too. I could see it in her eyes. Tartarus. The entrance to Tartarus. I uncapped Anaklusmos. The bronze sword expanded, gleaming in the darkness, and the evil voice seemed to falter, just for a moment, before resuming its chant. I could almost make out the words. Ancient words, older than Greek, as if magic, I said. We have to get out of here, Annabeth said. Together, we dragged Grover to his hooves and started back up the tunnel. My legs wouldn't move fast enough. My backpack weighed me down. The voice got louder and angrier behind us. We broke into a run. Not a moment too soon. A cold blast of wind pulled at our backs as if the entire pit were inhaling. For a terrifying moment, I lost ground, my feet slipping in the gravel. If we'd been any closer to the edge, we would have been sucked in. We kept struggling forward and finally reached the top of the tunnel, where the cavern widened into the fields of asphodel. The wind died. A wail of outrage echoed from deep in the tunnel. Something was not happy we'd gone away. What was that? Annabeth panted. We collapsed in the relative safety of the back of a black poplar grove. One of Hades' pets? Annabeth and I looked at each other. I could tell she was nursing an idea, probably the same one she'd got during the ride in the beg your pardon, in the taxi to LA, but she was too scared to share it, and that was enough to terrify me. I capped my sword, put my pen back in my pocket. Let's keep going. I looked at Grover. Can you walk? He swallowed. Yeah, sure. I never really liked those shoes anyways. He tried to sound brave about it, but he was trembling as badly as Annabeth and I were. Whatever was in that pit was nobody's pet. It was unspeakably old and powerful. Even the Inkaida hadn't given me that feeling. I was almost relieved to turn my back on that tunnel and head towards the Palace of Hades. Almost. The Furies circled the parapets, high in the gloom. The outer walls of the fortress glittered black, and a 72-story tall bronze gate stood wide open. Up close, I saw the engravings on the gates were scenes of death. Some were from modern times, an atomic bomb exploding over a city, a trench filled with gas mask wearing soldiers, a line of African famine victims waiting with empty bowls, but all of them looked as if they'd been etched into bronze thousands of years ago. I wondered if I was looking at prophecies that had come true. Inside the courtyard was the strangest garden I'd ever seen. Multicolored mushrooms, poisonous shrubs, weird, luminous plants grew without any sunlight. Precious jewels made up for the lack of flowers, piles of rubies as big as my fist, clumps of raw diamonds, standing here like they were frozen party guests, like Medusa's garden statues, petrified children, satyrs, and centaurs, all smiling grotesquely. In the center of the garden was an orchard of pomegranate trees, their orange blooms neon bright in the dark. The Garden of Persephone, Annabeth said. Keep walking. I understood why she wanted to move on. The tart smell of those pomegranates was almost overwhelming. I had the sudden desire to eat them, but then I remembered the story of Persephone. One bite of underworld food, and you would never be able to leave. I pulled Grover away to keep him from picking a big, juicy one. We walked up the steps of the palace, between black columns, through a black marble portico, and into the house of Hades. The entry hall had a polished bronze floor, which seemed to boil in the reflected torchlight. There was no ceiling, just the cavern roof far above. Guess they never had to worry about rain down here. Even the side doorway was guarded by a skeleton in military gear. Some wore Greek armor, some British redcoat uniforms, some camouflage with tattered American flags on the shoulders. They carried spears, or muskets, or M16s. None of them bothered us, but their hollow eye sockets followed us as we walked down the hall, towards the big set of doors at the opposite end. Two U.S. Marine skeletons guarded the doors. They grinned down at us, rocket-propelled grenade launchers held close to their chests. You know, Grover mumbled, I bet Hades doesn't have trouble with door-to-door salesmen. My backpack weighed a ton now, and I couldn't figure out why. I wanted to open it, check to see if I'd somehow picked up a stray bowling ball, but this wasn't the time. Hey guys, I said, I suppose we should knock? A hot wind blew down the corridor and the doors swung open. The guards stepped aside. I guess that means enter, Annabeth said. The room inside looked just like in my dream, except this time the throne of Hades was occupied. He was the third god I'd met, the first who really struck me as godlike. He was at least 3 meters tall, for one thing, and dressed in black silk robes and a crown of braided gold. His skin was albino white, his hair shoulder length and jet black. He wasn't bulked up like Ares, but he radiated power. He lounged on his throne, fused human bones, looking lithe, graceful, and dangerous, like a panther. I immediately felt like he should be giving the orders. He knew more than I did. He should be my master. And then I told myself to snap out of it. Hades' aura was affecting me, just as Ares had. The Lord of the Dead resembled pictures I'd seen of Adolf Hitler or Napoleon, or the terrorist leaders who direct suicide bombers. Hades had the same intense eyes, the same kind of mesmerizing evil charisma. You are brave to come here, son of Poseidon, he said in an oily voice, after what you have done. Very brave indeed. Or perhaps simply very foolish. Numbness crept into my joints, tempting me to lie down, just take a little nap at Hades' feet, curl up, sleep forever. I fought the feeling and stepped forward. I knew what I had to say. Lord and uncle, I come with 2 requests. Hades raised an eyebrow, and then he sat forward in his throne. Shadowy faces appeared in the folds of his black robes, faces of torment, as if the garment were stitched of trapped souls from the fields of punishment, trying to get out. The ADHD part of me wondered, off task, where the rest of his clothes were made the same way. What horrible things would you have to do in your life to get woven into Hades' underwear? Only 2 requests, Hades said, arrogant child, as if you have not already taken enough. Speak. It amuses me not to strike you dead yet. I swallowed. This was going about as well as I'd feared. I glanced at the empty, smaller throne next to Hades. It was shaped like a black flower, gilded with gold. I wish Queen Persephone was here. I recalled something in the myths about how she could calm her husband's moods, but it was summer. Of course, Persephone would be above in the world of light with her mother, the goddess of agriculture, Demeter. Her visits, not the tilt of the earth, created the seasons. Annabeth cleared her throat. Her finger prodded me in the back. Lord Hades, I said, look, sir, there can't be a war among the gods. It would be bad. Really bad, Grover added helpfully. Return Zeus's master bolt to me, I said. Please, sir, let me carry it to Olympus. Hades' eyes grew dangerously bright. You dare keep up this pretense after what you have done? I glanced back at my friends. They looked as confused as I was. Um, Uncle, you keep saying after what I've done. What exactly have I done? The throne room shook with a tremor so strong that they probably felt it upstairs in Los Angeles. Debris fell from the cavern ceiling. Doors burst open along the walls. Skeletal warriors marched in, hundreds of them from every time period and nation in Western civilization. They lined the perimeter of the room, blocking the exits. Hades bellowed, Do you think I want war, godling? I wanted to say, well, these guys don't look like peace activists, but I thought that might be a dangerous answer. You're the Lord of the Dead, I said carefully. A war would expand your kingdom, right? Typical thing for my brothers to say. Do you think I need more subjects? Do you not see the sprawl of Asphodel? Well, have you any idea how much my kingdom has swollen in this past century alone? How many subdivisions I've had to open? I opened my mouth to respond, but Hades was on a roll now. More security ghouls, he moaned. Traffic problems at Judgment Pavilion. Double overtime for the staff. I used to be a rich god, Percy Jackson. I control all the precious metals under the earth, but my expenses. Charon wants a pay raise, I blurted, just remembering the fact. As soon as I said it, I wished I could sue at my mouth. Don't get me started on Charon, Hades yelled. He's been impossible ever since he discovered Italian suits. Problems everywhere, and I've got to handle all of them personally. The commute time alone from the palace to the gates is enough to drive me insane. And the dead just keep arriving. No, Godling. I need no help getting subjects. I did not ask for this war. But you took Zeus's master bolt. Lies. More rumbling, Hades rose from his throne, towering to the height of a football goalpost. Your father may fool Zeus, boy, but I am not so stupid. I see his plan. His plan? You were the thief. On the winter solstice, I said. Your father thought to keep you his little secret. He directed you into the throne room on Olympus. You took the Master Bolt and my helmet. Had I not sent my fury to discover you at Yancy Academy, Poseidon might have succeeded in hiding his scheme to start a war. But now, you have been forced into the open. You will be exposed as Poseidon's thief, and I will have my helmet back. But, Annabeth spoke. I could tell her mind was going a million miles an hour. Lord Hades, your helmet of darkness is missing too. Do not play innocent with me, girl. You and the satyr have been helping this hero, coming here to threaten me in Poseidon's name, no doubt, to bring me an ultimatum. Does Poseidon think I can be blackmailed into supporting him? No, I said. Poseidon didn't. I didn't. I have said nothing of the helmet's disappearance, Hades snarled, because I had no illusions that anyone on Olympus would offer me the slightest justice, the slightest help. I can ill afford for word to get out that my most powerful weapon of fear is missing, so I searched for you myself, and when it was clear you were coming to deliver me your threat, I did not try to stop you. You didn't try to stop us? But return my helmet now, or I will stop death, Hades threatened. That is my counter proposal. I will open up the earth and have the dead pour back into the world. I will make your lands a nightmare. And you, Percy Jackson, your skeleton will lead my army out of Hades. Skeletal soldiers all took one step forward, making their weapons ready. At that point, I should have been terrified. The strange thing, I felt offended. Nothing gets me angry than being accused of something I didn't do. I've had a lot of experiences like that. You're as bad as Zeus, I said. You think I stole from you? Is that why you sent the Furies after me? But of course, Hades said. And the other monsters. Hades curled his lip. I had nothing to do with them. I wanted no quick death for you. I wanted you brought before me alive, so that you might face every torture in the fields of punishment. Why do you think I let you enter my kingdom so easily? Easily? Return my property. But I don't have your helmet. I came for the Master Bolt, which you already possess, Hades shouted. You came here with it, little fool, thinking you could threaten me. But I didn't. Open your pack, then. A horrible feeling struck me, the weight in my backpack, like a bowling ball. It couldn't be. I slung off my shoulder and unzipped it. Inside was a 60-centimeter long metal cylinder, spiked at both ends, humming with energy. Percy, Annabeth said. How? I don't understand. You heroes are always the same, Hades said. Your pride makes you foolish, thinking you could bring such a weapon before me. I did not ask for Zeus's master bolt, but since it is here, you will yield it to me. I'm sure it will make an excellent bargaining tool. And now, my helmet. Where is it? I was speechless. I had no helmet. I had no idea how the master bolt had got into my backpack. I wanted to think Hades was pulling some kind of trick. Hades was the bad guy. But suddenly the world turned sideways. I'd realized I'd been played with. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades had been at each other's throats by someone else. The Master Bolt had been in the backpack, and I'd got the backpack from. Lord Hades, wait, I said. This is all a mistake. A mistake, Hades roared. The skeletons aimed their weapons. From high above, there was a fluttering of leathery wings, and the three Furies swooped down to perch on the back of the Master's throne. The one with Miss Dodd's face grinned eagerly and flicked her whip. There is no mistake, Hades said. I know why you have come. I know the real reason you brought the bolt. You came to bargain for her. Hades loosed a ball of gold from his palm. It exploded on the steps in front of me. And there was my mother, frozen in a shower of gold, just as she was at the moment when the Minotaur began to squeeze her to death. I couldn't speak. I reached out to touch her, but the light was hot as bonfire. Yes, Hades said with satisfaction. I took her. I knew, Percy Jackson, that you would come to bargain with me eventually. Return my helmet, and perhaps I will let her go. She's not dead, you know. Not yet. But if you displease me, that will change. I thought about the pearls in my pocket. Maybe they could get me out of this, if I could just get my mom free. Ah, the pearls, Hades said. My blood froze. Yes, my brother and his little tricks. Bring them forth, Percy Jackson. My hand moved against my will and brought out the pearls. Only 3, Hades said. What a shame. You do realize each only protects a single person. Try to take your mother, then, little godling. And which of your friends will you leave behind to spend eternity with me? Go on, choose, or give me the backpack and accept my terms. I looked at Annabeth and Grover. Their faces were grim. We were tricked, I told them. Set up. Yes, but why? Annabeth asked. And the voice in the pit? I don't know yet, I said, but I intend to ask. Decide, boy, Hades yelled. Percy. Grover put his hand on my shoulder. You can't give him the bolt. I know that. Leave me here, he said. Use the third pearl on your mom. No. I'm a satyr, Grover said. We don't have souls like humans do. He can torture me till I die, but he won't get me forever. I'll just be reincarnated as a flower or something. It's the best way. No, Annabeth drew her bronze knife. You two go. Grover, you have to protect Percy. You have to get your searcher's license and start your quest for Pan. Get his mom out of here. I'll cover you. I plan to go down fighting. No way, Grover said. I'm staying behind. Think again, goat boy, Annabeth said. Stop it, both of you. I felt like my heart was being ripped in two. They had both been with me through so much. I remembered Grover dive-bombing Medusa, the statue garden, and Annabeth saving us from Cerberus. We'd survived Hephaestus's Waterland ride, the St. Louis Arch, the Lotus Casino. I had spent thousands of miles worried that I'd be betrayed by a friend, but these friends would never do that. They had done nothing but save me, over and over, and now they wanted to sacrifice their lives for my mom. I know what to do, I said. Take these. I handed them each a pearl. Annabeth said, but Percy. I turned and faced my mother. I desperately wanted to sacrifice myself and use the last pearl on her, but I knew what she would say. She would never allow it. I had to get the bolt back to Olympus and tell Zeus the truth. I had to stop the war. She would never forgive me if I saved her instead. I thought about the prophecy made at Half-Blood Hill, what seemed like 1,000,000 years ago. You will fail to save what matters most in the end. I'm sorry, I told her. I'll be back. I'll find a way. The smug look on Hades' face faded. He said, Godling? I'll find your helmet, uncle, I told him. I'll return it. Remember about Charon's pay raise. Do not defy me. And it wouldn't hurt to play with Cerberus once in a while. He likes red rubber balls. Percy Jackson, You will not, I shouted. Now, guys. We smashed the pearls at our feet. For a scary, scary moment, nothing happened. Hades yells. Destroyed them. An army of skeletons rushed forward, swords out, guns clicking to full automatic. The Furies lunge, their whips bursting into flame. And just as the skeletons opened fire, the pearls exploded at my feet with a burst of green light and a gush of fresh sea wind. I was encased in a milky white sphere, which was starting to float off the ground. Annabeth and Grover were right behind me. Spears and bullets sparked harmlessly off the pearl bubbles as we floated up. Hades yelled with such rage the entire fortress shook, and I knew it was not going to be a peaceful night in LA. Look up, Grover said. We're going to crash. Sure enough, we were racing towards the stalactites, which I figured would pop our bubbles and skewer us. Do you know how to control these things? Annabeth shouted. I don't think you do, I shouted back. We screamed as the bubbles slammed into the ceiling and darkness. Were we dead? No. I could still feel the racing sensation. We were going up, right through the solid rock, as easily as an air bubble in water. That was the power of the pearls, I realized. What belongs to the sea will always return to the sea. For a few moments, I couldn't see anything outside the smooth walls of my sphere, and then my pearl broke through on the ocean floor. The other two milky spheres, Annabeth and Grover, kept pace with me as we soared through the water, and then kerplam. We exploded on the surface in the middle of Los Angeles Bay, knocking a surfer off his board with an indignant, Dude! I grabbed Grover and hauled him over to a life buoy. I caught Annabeth and dragged her over to it too. A curious shark was circling us, a great white about 3 meters long. Beat it, I said. The shark turned and raced away. The surfer screamed something about bad mushrooms and paddled away as fast as he could. Somehow I knew what time it was. Early morning. June 21st, the day of the summer solstice. In the distance, Los Angeles was on fire, plumes of smoke rising from neighborhoods all over the city. There had been an earthquake, all right, and it was Hades' fault. He's probably sending an army of the dead after me right now. But that moment, the underworld wasn't my biggest problem. I had to get to shore. I had to get Zeus's thunderbolt back to Olympus, and most of all, I had to have a serious conversation with the god who had tricked me. I believe that is our time. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Next time, we will read chapter 18. I battle my jerk relative. Have a wonderful evening.